This week on the Old School RuneScape Update, Varlamore the Final Dawn arrives with the Doom of Mokhaiotl and its Zoomies. For those without the Zoomies, though, Slayer and the Gemstone Crab fit the bill. Also, the Auburnvale Fletching Activity brings us closer to nature in Varlamore. This is the Old School RuneScape Update, Episode 80, recorded Friday, July 25th, 2025, the Doom Zoomies. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Old School RuneScape Update. Sirion and myself are here as we are each and every week, and I get to say that because that's true for the next 2 episodes after this one.
Yep. And then you never get to say it again.
And then it's done. It's all done.
Yeah, it's done. Yeah,
it's all done. I still don't know if that's the right decision, but it is the decision that you and I came to nonetheless. But that is, of course, what we are talking about. OSRS update is ending in 2 episodes' time. We mentioned that at the tail end of last episode, but we'll go through a little bit more of that at the end of the show if people missed that. But Of course, always good to be with you here on these big, huge tentpole content release weeks.
Oh, it was a big one.
It really was. And for our experience, this is really OSRS coming full circle. This is OSRS update coming full circle, and of course, what we're talking about is the release of Varlamore: The Final Dawn. But if you want to follow along, full show notes over at update.show/OS. We also, of course, have our Discord at update.show/Discord, and the friends chat can be found in game at BitsBytes. Okay, Varlamore: The Final Dawn. We started. I think it was like episode 24 or something when the first Varlamore section came out, and here we are at the end, almost discussing the final one. We were wondering when this was going to be, and for everything that we got, I think it has delivered, and delivered wholesomely.
Yeah, I think so. I remember being super excited and into like the first one, and then the second one disappointed a little bit.
Okay, I was wondering if that was just me. This one is we're back in full swing, and I am positively surprised about a whole bunch of the content in here. That's right. And we're just going to dive into the combat side of it with the Doom, the Delve boss. And we were wondering where this was going to land. As many folks will know, I'm not a combat or PVM person, but you have successfully thrown yourself at least at Delve level 1 of this boss and been rewarded handsomely with a rune pickaxe.
Which I subsequently lost by betting it on Delve level 2, messing up some prayers and instantly dying. But
that's okay.
That's Delve bosses for you. So to get access to this, you of course do need to finish the Final Dawn quest. That sort of shows you what the lore behind it is. We're not going over the quests today. I think
that'll
that's
be
worth
next week.
Mentioning. We'll do all of the quests next week. We'll have a look back as well at the entire storyline and maybe, what's next, because the story isn't finished.
No, there wasn't a satisfying conclusion at the end of the quest. There was not.
Exactly. But yeah, Delve boss, in case you've been burrowed under a rock. Get it?
That's a good way of putting it.
A Delve boss basically is old school's take of what would be called an enraged boss in RS3, which means you can kill it, and then when you killed it, you can either kill it again afterwards with some more mechanics or more difficult mechanics, basically sacrificing your loot for the next stage, or you can decide this is it and take things home if you're out of supplies. You need to do it all with the same supplies, so it's a little bit like the Colosseum, but different, I suppose, right?
Yeah, and we went over this when
the first batch of behind the scenes came out, but effectively what this amounts to, and I think this is actually a smart way of doing it, is that rather than, having a system where you in effect rinse and repeat and you effectively get a multiplier that increases its difficulty each and every time, the canonical thing that this boss does is it goes deeper and deeper into the delve levels for that.
Yep.
And that's what makes it more difficult. And I think that's a more wholesome way of delivering on that when you get to the end of it.
So it is important to realize that it's not just like a multiply. It's not like path, like rate level in Tombs of Mokhaiotl, right? Like if the rate level goes up, the bosses just get more health, higher defense. It's not like that. It's really the mechanics, every delve level,
new mechanics appear and whatnot.
The mechanics get more complicated. There are changes to it. New mechanics get introduced, and at the end of it, it's quite a mess. Yeah.
So I think what we should do with this is we should start with some of the core mechanics that you're gonna see here, and and this is the thing that got me when I was watching what you sent me of your run through this, and you were talking it over. At the core of it, each mechanic, at least at level 1, seems simple enough.
Yeah, so what I think this boss does really well is it has a bunch of mechanics, and each of them are fairly, they're well telegraphed, they're easy to understand. And a lot of these mechanics already exist in some form or another at other bosses. So I think Jax already made this comparison in the news post, but the comparison really holds true. If you can do Zabak in Tombs of Mokhaiotl and Leviathan, then that basically gives you enough foundation to execute on all of the mechanics one by one. What really makes this boss more difficult and sort of like the next tier of bossing is that a lot of these things happen at the same time, and you really need to keep your head cool and just execute on them, prioritizing on the go, and really on that front sort of interpret what's going on. Like it's really a side reading boss, if that makes sense.
And the thing that I saw from this is that as you're going to be leveling up in terms of going deeper into the delve, you have smaller and smaller margins of error for mistakes that you can make. And like let's just say the first half of your first kill that you did here, that was had a few mistakes.
Tragic.
But the second half, those mistakes became less and less. And if you went into wave 2, then you would not have. Well, this happened to you. You wound up dead because of that margin of error window shrinking. And that's effectively, I think, the best way to summarize the delve and rage system that we have here.
Exactly. So, which I think is really great. I think it's a really good curve. I also do think that it will actually be a fun boss to. It will remain interesting and fun. Like none of the mechanics are annoying in a sense. I think all of them are a challenge in interesting ways.
Yeah. So what are let's go through some of the mechanics then.
Yep. So of course, the boss, the Doom, does have some basic attacks. In Delve level 1, the attacks are just blue and green, which means spray, magic, and ranged respectively. From Delve level 2 onwards, the projectiles can also be red. I mean, I'll leave that as homework for all of the listeners to figure out what you need to pray against a red projectile.
It's melee.
Right?
It's melee.
The boss also does have a melee attack, so you really want to avoid standing in melee too long. It is really quite an effective hit. You can pray against it, but it doesn't block fully 100%. So that's sort of the baseline mechanic. What it will do quite regularly is instead of throwing a projectile at you, it will throw a big rock at you. And the rock is either a normal rock, slightly red tinted, or it's like a blue rock. What that does is the rock sort of falls apart into little pieces of debris that fall down that you need to avoid. Again, avoid the shadows. How many bosses in the game have this mechanic? It really straight.
Basically, you mean the shadows that appear on the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But one of the interesting things that it does is when the rock hits, your protection prayer gets disabled. And at that point, you need to enable the protection prayer in the right style that the rock indicated. So the normal rock is ranged, the blue rock is magic. You have a few ticks to do this, and then you get hit by a projectile right after it. That's the mechanic.
And I assume you see the color of it when the boss throws it.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
One of the interesting things is that starting from Delve level 2, instead of having one hit coming out of the big rock, you get 2 hits. The first one will always be in the same style as the rock. The other one will always be in the opposite style. So you need to switch your prayer after being hit by the first projectile. From Delve level 4, it's going to be 3 hits. From Delve level 8, it's going to be 2 sets of 3 hits. And they also tick faster. So,
and the question I have then with the higher delve levels on this one and the 3 hits is that does that then go to the third combat style?
No, it always sticks with ranged and melee. It's always a predictable pattern as well. Okay. It always alternates, except for in the 2 sets in the 8th delve level. So if it's ranged, it's always ranged magic ranged magic range. Like the 2 sets are always the exact same. But other than that, it always alternates between the 2.
Okay, because I was going to say if it added in melee into that would be quite the thing to do.
Yeah, that would be quite difficult. Yeah. So the reason that we mentioned the Leviathan, if you have fought the Leviathan, you know that the Leviathan always attacks in groups of attacks, and you always need to switch prayers, and that this also speeds up over time. So very similar mechanic, but slightly differently fluffed.
All right.
Cool. That's the first mechanic. The second mechanic that in my case, the boss used quite often at the same time at the rock. So they would chuck the rock and then immediately they would start charging up a attack. This means like a yellow bar appears above them. And when that bar finishes charging, you get hit for quite a lot of damage. So in Delve level 1, it's 60, but it scales up all the way to 99 damage at Delve level 8. So unless you're overhealed, there's really is an insta-kill. Essentially. You can really just interrupt the attack with any melee damage. So avoiding it is pretty straightforward. The reason it gets complicated, and like the mechanic in itself sounds really straightforward, right? Switch to a melee weapon, tag him, run away. The problem is at the same time you're dealing with this exploding ball. And often also larvae, which we'll get to in a second. And that's where the difficulty of the boss comes in. It is prioritizing. It is, okay, avoid the rocks, hit the boss with a melee weapon, turn on my prayer, hit the larvae, change my prayer. It gets sort of this internal prioritization that you need.
This is just a huge challenge for people to see how many things they can hold in their hands and then stand on their head and recite a poem, isn't it?
Exactly. From the 3rd Delve level onwards, there's a shield phase as well. I don't exactly know how the shield phase work. It sort of integrates with the charging, but based on what I can see, essentially the boss keeps charging while the shield is up. But if you hit the boss, at least it resets the charge. But you need to reset the charge multiple times in a row while getting rid of the shield. I think that's how it works. Don't at me if it's wrong.
No, and to be fair, the one thing that we've always said with OSRS Update is that this is our experience as we come to old school. So, it was actually surprising to me that you did this. So well done.
Yeah. Then the next thing, I already mentioned them, the larvae. These are demonic larvae that show up at the edge of the arena and they walk to the boss. They make it to the boss, they heal the boss, and do a small bit of damage to you. So you really want to kill them before they get there. The larvae takes 2 hits from normal weapons, or only 1 hit from Demon Bane weapons. So that is Arclight, Amberlight, Silverlight if you want. But also Demon Bane, Magic, and the Scorching Bow. So Tormented Demon drops coming in clutch.
Yeah,
sure.
You remember when those came out, people were like, well, this is Demon Bane equipment. We really don't have a high-level use case.
Jagex has a habit of giving us the tools.
Yeah.
Giving us the tools before we need the tools, which I think is the right order to do it in. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah, the larvae, they can sometimes protect against certain styles, so you need to switch. They might also be colored, and at some point they're colored. I don't exactly know what that means.
Is it related to the colors of the combat style that they would prefer?
Yeah, something along the lines.
Okay.
But yes.
Could it be that Demon Bane is always a one hit, and then as you get to higher delve levels, it might have a preference on what it gets hit by?
I think from what the colored ones, I think they protect against 2 styles instead of 1. So in the first 3 delve levels, they will protect against at most 1 combat style.
Okay.
Starting from delve level 4, they might actually protect against 2 styles. So from delve level 4, you really need to bring all 3 styles. Up to delve level 3, you can get away with just 2 styles. So that simplifies that situation a little bit. But that's it. The larvae do explode in a small 3x3 area around them, so you need to be careful. Apparently, the larvae, if you don't kill them, the player gains a stack of demonic charge, and demonic charge basically means you're taking more damage from all of the other attacks. So
so it's a debuff on you.
Yeah, it's a debuff on you. So that's another
meaning
reason
that you can ignore the larvae, but you really shouldn't.
You really shouldn't, because they do damage they do damage you, and they do heal the doom. So you can, at some point, if it gets overwhelming, you can choose to ignore them, and that's where the prioritization comes in at this boss, right? You can choose to prioritize the higher damage things.
Okay.
The final mechanic, yes.
Go for the final mechanic, then I'll say what I was going to say.
The final mechanic you have to deal with at delve level 1 is the shockwave. So at this point, there are a bunch of, I think it's called volatile earth, that is being spawned around the map. You can hit one of them. They always die in one attack. So you hit one of them, that becomes your target, and then you hit another one, and that becomes your starting point. And what happens is the moment you hit the starting point, a energy bubble appears at that starting point and starts moving at walking speed to the target that you hit first.
Emphasis on walking speed.
Yes. What you therefore want to do is you want to choose 2 of these points that are far apart from each other, like at opposite sides of the arena. Because in the next attack, where the entire map basically turns into a shockwave, only the tiles inside this energy bubble, and it's only a 2x2 area, are safe.
Okay, and I'm glad I was going to wait to say what I was going to say, because this last mechanic that you outlined operates very similarly to a lot of the high level enraged stuff that they do on RS3. So while immediately it doesn't look like a carbon for carbon copy at some of the enraged mechanics that other RuneScape properties have done, looking at it from this perspective, there's a lot similar in terms of how you can see the various different mechanics as you enrage level up. And in some cases, you can even imagine a case where if there was a training mode for this boss, you would have the ability to have certain mechanics available or not for that to work with.
Yeah.
So overall, I'll say
there's
that
more mechanics.
Oh, okay. I thought that was the last one. Okay.
No, these are the last ones at level 1.
Okay.
The next ones I haven't seen, so I can go over these quite quickly, I think. But these shockwaves to talk about you with the margin of error getting lower the higher you go in delve levels. At the delve level 1, he only does 1 slam, but at level 8, that has scaled up to 5 slams in a row. So at that point, you really need to wait until the last moment to trigger this shield and make sure that it really has a long distance time so that it stays up long enough for you to protect yourselves against 5 slams. So that's why...
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's quite difficult. The other few mechanics. So there's Acid Blood. This is basically a little bit like Samphor's Venom attack, where basically a few puddles are dropped on the floor. You can't stand in them; they do damage. These puddles stay between delve levels, except for they reset at delve level 6. So you want to try
that's probably smart.
You want to try and avoid there being too many of them because that's going to cause trouble. From level 5 onwards, you have a Vase Car mechanic. That's how the community has called it. Don't look at me. Where basically the Doom starts charging directly at you in a straight line, and then after that, it's called a zoom. Apparently, it's a Vase Car that does zooms. Sure. While that happens, there's a slam on the ground. You need to stand behind one of the rocks in the arena to avoid that. So that's similar to the Zabak mechanic, where you need to stand behind a rock to avoid his shockwave. The challenge here is that when the Doom zooms, it can get rid of the rocks. So you need to be a little bit careful and strategic about that. At delve level 6 and onwards, you need to be careful because while he zooms around the arena, he still does auto attacks. So you also need to both move and switch your prayers. And that's it.
Ooh.
Easy peasy.
At least at delve level 1, it sounds easy peasy.
Like we said at the start, I think each of these mechanics can be explained in a few sentences, and I think each mechanic in isolation, if you've done some mid-level PVM, you can probably handle them. The difficulty really comes from combining all of these, from prioritizing them all together.
Yeah.
It's really management. I think that's the right word. Managing your not even your resources, but managing your actions and managing your priorities and managing the arena.
So if we were to tier this, where does this sit? Like in terms of, Inferno Coliseum level down to the Desert Treasure 2 bosses, and then below that, Vorkap.
It is definitely beyond the Desert Treasure 2 bosses, and it's also beyond at least entry level, maybe even normal level raids. I think where Jagex puts it is before the Inferno, which I think is fair. The Inferno is still pretty high.
Yeah.
Some of these mechanics look like they're on par with the Colosseum, so I would put this boss roughly on par with the Colosseum in terms of difficulty.
All right.
But I was able to do the first delve level, and I think I could probably learn at least the second delve level, maybe even 3 and 4 with enough practice and better gear. So, this really is a tiered boss. Like, you don't have to go for delve level 8 every single time if you don't want to. It is completely valid to just do this up to level 4 and then reset.
Yeah, and my question would be is, what does the loot look like at level 4? Because we saw your, singular rune pickaxe at level 1. And we've seen the immaculate loot at level, 6 and beyond. So
there have been people who have gotten, I think, the some of the drops at level 4 already. They're probably quite rare. We'll see the exact rates later, but yeah.
Okay. So overall,
I think they knocked it out of the park with this boss.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
It puts it. I think it is in a very different position than some of the other bosses. It's a very unique boss in terms of it's not really about individual mechanics that are hard. It's really about the management of the different things. I think none of the mechanics feel quite like a nuisance or like an annoyance. I am not a PVMer. I can't speak if this appeals to high-level PVM, but for me, they knocked this out of the park, and I'm sort of looking forward to getting to the point where I can avoid maybe like a Scorching Bow and actually do this boss.
Well, hasn't that been the entire Varlamore experience, is that it's been a piece of content in all its stripes that's primarily aimed at either, the new and returning players to old school to kind of get their feet wet in terms of the way that old school operates itself and whatnot. And we saw that with the skilling stuff, the quests, and now we're seeing that with the PVM a second time around.
Yeah, I guess you could say that, yeah.
Yeah. And, I think in terms of the entire Varlamore experience, I think that is probably a very positive way to look at this in terms of what people are walking away with at the end of all this. So,
yep.
Any more thoughts on mechanics or the boss itself before we talk about some of the drops?
I like the appearance of the boss as well, like the two claws that sort of form the shield, but are also like a face. No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Music is good. Theme is good. The arena is a little bit boring. That's the only. If I had to criticize,
it's
something.
Underground.
Yeah,
it's a cavern. Yeah. What the heck?
Yeah.
Okay. The Eye of Ayek. We talked about these extensively when they were going through the reward blog posts, and we spent a lot of time on the boots and whatnot. But we had the thought that this magic weapon, the one-handed magic weapon, was going to be a star, and it turns out that is indeed the case here.
Yeah, absolutely. In old school, attack speed is king. And the Eye of Ayek, I think, will form a really nice niche. Of course, it will be a stepping stone between the Sangresti staff and the Shadow, first of all, and having that space be filled, I couldn't be happier. But I think even for people that own the Shadow, I believe that it still has a niche use case, because the higher attack speed definitely makes it more suitable for summoning hunters.
I think, and I mean, even the spec too, double accuracy.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's.
I think this will end up like maybe slightly higher level, but this will be the blowpipe of mage.
That's a good way of putting it, because when you look at the entire tiering of the magic weapons, there really isn't anything at that sort of level here that fits that kind of niche. So
I'm curious to see. I'm a little bit worried about the price point it will end up sitting. I think it will definitely sit around both our levels of price of probably like 100, 150 mil. So it's going to be a pretty good solid drop if you get it.
Yeah.
Actually, where's the Sangresti staff right now? Because it's probably going to sit above that in terms of price.
We can check that briefly right now.
Oh, that's at 40 mil. Yeah, so I think I'm pretty spot on with like 100, 150 mil on that estimate.
Yeah. Okay. Following from that, the Avernick treads. We went back and forth on this so many times. I am just happy to mention that they have made it into game. Unless there's anything you want to mention, I got fatigued from talking about these back and forth.
Nope, all good.
Okay, same. The Confliction gauntlets.
Awesome.
Yeah, I honestly, the star of the show was the magic staff.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then the other thing I think just to note with this is that this is the first effectively enrage bossing in old school, I think.
Yep.
And
I don't think,
and the response to this will determine if they do more and how much of a community loved thing it is.
I think we can't really judge that. I think we need to give the community time to play with it.
Yeah.
And to see what they think of, because you always have to go through the first 7 delve levels to get to the juicy part of the drops, right? We'll have to see what people think about it. Maybe in like a few weeks, the PVMers are complaining that, can we just skip? Yeah, we'll see. But so far, it seems to work pretty well.
Yeah, and based on what you showed me and what we discussed here for at least level 1, I think that the early levels 1, 2 in particular, from what you've said, are going to be dynamic enough that it's not going to encourage people to feel the need they need to skip to higher level.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we're not done with the combat stuff. We also have the Custodia Pass Slayer dungeon here, and we have not done the Shadow of Custodia quest yet. That's on the docket for next week, but we can still mention the Slayer dungeon here. And I think the first thing that's worth mentioning out of this is the Slayer level requirements around the critters inside there.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you look at these, and they outright mention this in the news post, that they are a lower Slayer level, but don't underestimate them and don't assume that they're not going to be beneficial to you just because they start off at level 54 Slayer.
Yep, I think very much this is trying to fit a niche, right? Like, let me open the Slayer skill guide here and look at monsters. Like, if you look at like level 40 Terror Dogs, Infernal Mages, Brine Rats,
Which, to be fair,
okay,
a lot of the things you just mentioned are absolutely garbage and came out when Slayer did.
Exactly. Okay, so level 50 Bloodfells is the interesting one.
Yeah, those are always good.
Warped Creatures maybe at level 56. Aberrant Spectres at level 60 are pretty good.
I always disliked Warped Creatures.
Yeah. So look, the Juvenile Custodian Stalker sit at level 54, right between Jellies and Turov. We'll let you make your own mind on that. The mature ones sit right
good.
between... The right ones at 67 sit right between Fossil Island Wyverns and Spiritual Warriors. And the Elder Custodian Stalkers sit at level 76, right between Gargoyles and Brutal Black Dragons. So, you know what? I like it. I also think it's really lovely that we get the Antler Guard, which is basically an alternative to the Dragon Defender.
Yeah, you saw that. I'm just laughing because being a level 50 prayer-based weapon, I wonder what the cost of this is going to be at the end of it. And if people who have not been lucky with the Warriors Guild RNG will just opt for this instead.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously you want the Dragon Defender eventually, but
yeah, though I do think the Antler Guard, of course, is something that has a +4 prayer bonus, and that is something the Dragon Defender, I believe, doesn't
actually
have.
+5.
No, Antler Guard is +4.
I'm looking at the card here. It says 5.
Okay, then the card is wrong.
Okay.
The real-time prices on the Antler Guard right now are around 3 mil.
And the news post says that +5 prayer bonus makes it a real treat for anyone rocking Proselyte.
So I think maybe if you look at the top of the notes, I believe there was a note that there was a mistake that either... Oh no, the in-game defense bonuses were missing. Okay, it might be that it's +5 and the wiki isn't updated. That could be.
Okay. But still, we're splitting peas over 1 prayer bonus.
But like, look, even then, yes, it has only a +5 strength bonus rather than the +6 from a Dragon Defender. If you are doing Slayer in full Proselyte, all of a sudden that +5 prayer bonus might be more juicy than that +1.
Than +1 strength.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, you need 60 defense for the Dragon Defender. You only need 50 prayer for the Antler Guard.
And I think that's just a smart niche to fill, especially adding in more offhanded kind of things like
Yeah.
that.
It also does have a +2 range strength bonus, so if you are
Crossbow.
looking for some high... Yep, exactly. It might help with a crossbow before you get better weapons like the Dragonfire Ward, or the Twisted Buckler. And of course, if you need to switch, it's also not a bad hybrid. So look, we have identified like 3 different niches this could fill, so I don't think this is going anywhere. I think it's a really good
Oh yeah,
fit.
I 100% agree with you on that.
I'm going to be interested to see if this might be a new meta for 1 defense pierce as well.
That's an interesting thought, and that makes sense with not having the defense requirement on there.
Yeah.
So, good. All right. Anything else Slayer dungeon-wise, or can we move on to the crab?
Crab is love, crab is life.
Yeah.
Give your life to the crab.
And, there have been a few hardcore Iron Men that have actually done that already, according to the actual stats that have come out.
Yes.
3 hardcore Iron Men, 1 regular, and 2 group have actually died due to this crab. And it's worth noting, of course, that the crab has a max hit of 1. So, those people were out there 1 HP Darrocking it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but there's really not much to say about the Gemstone Crab. It's just there.
Nope.
You go there, you click on it, you wait 10 minutes, you get combat XP. And if you're in the top 16, you get the ability to mine it if you want. And I think one of the best things about it...
It's probably less... Go for it.
Okay, I was going to say, my 2 favorite things about it are that when it moves on after 10 minutes, there's a little dungeon shortcut that takes you to where it's next going to spawn. And it eliminates the overhit problem that the other crabs in game have if you have high leveled gear.
Yeah. Look, it's a nice thing. The downside is you get only like 87.5% of the XP. I think so. You get 3.5 XP per hit point you do instead of 4. Yeah. So it is slightly worse.
Yeah.
Somebody did the math. I believe the moment your max hit becomes 17 or higher, actually, because you overkill Ammonite crabs, this boss actually becomes more XP on average. I probably like this boss better because it's much nicer not to have to hop like a trillion worlds to find a free world.
Yeah, and then manage the aggro of the crabs and whatnot.
And then manage the aggro, running away, coming back, finding that somebody has taken over your spot. Oh my god. It's chill. It's nice.
I honestly might like this more than Nightmare Zone, just because of the setup that's involved going into it. I know it's not as great XP.
Exactly.
But, it's just like a fire and forget kind of thing, something you could do on mobile.
Oh, absolutely. I could have this open on like mobile or an iPad while working. No problem at all. I would, yeah.
And it's actually got me thinking that, maybe I should just become an AFK old school player and do that. I tested this, by the way.
Just 200 mil in all melee stats, right? That's your only goal.
Yeah. With the Abyssal Whip, just set it on controlled and come back, however many years later, and there you go. But I tested this with the my setup is a little bit unorthodox. It's the full Blood Moon armor setup, Dragon Boots, Legend's Cape, Fury, and Whip, and I was getting between 60 and 65k XP an hour.
Yep, I was using full Blood Moon because then, of course, you get the set effect, which is always nice, together with, I think for me, it's an Amulet of Torture, Thrusher's Glove. So I have a bunch of more strength bonus here, Fire Cape as well, of course. So I was getting up to 90 to 100k strength XP.
And I mean, even when you consider some of the stuff that you might set up in Nightmare Zone, and if you're not 100% optimized there, I still think that there's a compelling case to be made that if you want the AFK experience, rather than, giving everything into Nightmare Zone with it, this
also
might
the
be
environment is nicer than the Nightmare Zone, because the Nightmare Zone, it's absolutely trash. It was one of the first ever updates.
The dungeon that Nightmare Zone is in is basically a carbon copy of the Brimhaven Metal Dragon dungeon, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Now, I guess the other question with this is that do you bring the gem bag if you're doing this every so often to mine the gems if you get top 16?
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I would if I had one.
fair. But overall, very pleased with the crab. With that then takes us to the fletching activity. You know, I knew this was going to be my highlight of the update, and I remember us going over the blog post here. You were very, very lukewarm on this. How are you now?
I shall eat my words. I love it.
I know, and I thought it's exactly what I thought it was going to be. I love it too.
I was afraid it was going to be a little bit like Herbie Werby in its own little area, sort of isolated. But they integrated it into the world so nicely. The XP rates are amazing. It is just the right amount of engagement and interaction you need to be interesting. Or, well, not interesting is a big word, but at least to be engaging, right?
Yeah.
I
love
nice.
I love the economics of what this is going to do, because this is a sink for all those other fletching materials that are in game that might not get elked.
Well, yeah, I don't know. So what I didn't bring like pre-made unstrung bows.
Oh, okay.
I literally strung the bows for the decoration while running between totems. So actually, the way you can figure it out is if you do like a full lap. I was able to basically keep up on fletching 4 unstrung bows each time between 2 totems on average. So that means I was really only consuming logs. But of course, you get the XP from first fletching the bows and then adding them to the totems. So that sort of works really well. Like it fulfills a similar role, I think, to mastering mixology, where you really get more XP for your buck, right? Like it's of Mahogany Homes.
That's exactly what I was thinking of. The connection and the parallels this had with both Mahogany Homes and mastering mixology.
Now, the big difference with totems is that you actually get more XP if you do per hour if you do it this way. So if you look at both Mahogany Homes and mastering mixology, you're basically sacrificing XP per hour for XP per GP. What you're sacrificing with fletching is, of course, fletching bows is actually reasonably AFK.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that much downtime. I think it's like 4 ticks per bow. So 27, where's my calculator? So that's 27 times 4 times 0.6. So that's about a minute of downtime each inventory you fletch. Here you don't have that downtime. So really, it's a completely different trade-off you're making here.
Yeah, and I think you know, going into this that's what you're signing up for, a non-passive, potentially non-AFK fletching activity here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you're rewarded with the XP. And they have
I got the fletching knife as well.
Oh, you did? You already picked that up. Nice. Okay.
Yep, I got pretty lucky, I think. I don't know what the drop rate is, but I think I did the activity for about 45 minutes, and I got my fletching knife. I'm really pleased with that.
Okay.
That's going to make it a little bit easier to keep up with the bows as well while running.
Yeah. What I was also going to say with this, and I'll say 2 things now, is that I think what the evolution on this is that it gives another alternative for fletching training that doesn't just rely on you having to sit in the bank. And I think that's good because it provides that extra level of XP for that investment. And I've always found that the traditional fletching options that are out there, unless you're doing something absolutely insane like bolt tips, is that it's a little bit slow and it's a little bit monotonous. I don't necessarily know if you'd want to do this, flat out all the way to 99 once you unlock it, but I mean, you could.
So I think one of the things with fletching is And so when I first did this activity, I was like, oh my goodness, the XP rates are like off the charts, right? Like this is ridiculous. Then I realized that I think the meta for fletching is that you basically do 0 time fletching, right? You basically do fletching as part of other activities, agility, fishing, I guess. I don't know. Like there are other things you can do it with, and that has never appealed to me as a training method.
No.
So I think they had to make the XP rates here pretty good and solid to compete with literally free XP, right? Which is 0 time fletching is free XP essentially. I am actually reasonably happy with where it sits. I think it's a very valid XP rate. You still require very active effort. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, factor it all in. You get the bowstring spool as an option to make stringing bows easier. And then you also get the boost with that fletching knife of making the unstrung bows if you just wanted to go with that as your primary fletching option instead. And we talked about the tick increases in terms of, or rather the tick decrease in cutting those bows, and just how that rockets your XP rate up for the higher level bows.
Yep.
So
I'm looking forward to stacking up the spools though. That's gonna be good.
Yeah.
Also, like thinking about it, like for Iron Man, getting logs is always going to be getting the logs is always going to be a big factor when it comes to fletching training on a Iron Man account. Of course, you have like Winter Toad and like other like methods of getting logs in bulk, but this really allows you to get more value out of those individual logs, and you get access to these packs of flax, right? These flax packs. How are they called? I don't know how they're called, really.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of how it sounds almost like flat pack.
Yeah, which of course, once you have the bow spool, you can just take the packs to a spinning wheel and then put the spun flax onto the bow spool. I don't think people realize how much of a game changer rewards like this are for Iron Man accounts and maybe even Ultimate Iron Man.
Yeah, and that's been as well, just to bring this back to the whole Varlamore experience, that has been the thing that we've seen in each of the 3 batches that have come out for this, is that in terms of early gameplay and Iron gameplay, a lot of the things that have come here have been, absolutely immaculate in that regard. Like, did you notice how close that flax field is to the spinning wheel and bank?
Mm-hmm. I mean, have you seen how close the sawmill is in Auburnvale to the bank? It's even closer than in the woodcutting
I did
guild.
not notice the sawmill, no.
But that's also a massive game change. So I think there was like a Reddit post, and I completely agree with it, that Varlamore, all 3 batches, have completely upheaved mid-game Iron Man progression.
I think we could take that one step further and apply that to whatever kind of account that you have, honestly.
Yeah. Like the moon's armors are like way better than Barrow's armors, right? Way more interesting bosses to fight as well. So that completely replaces that part. You have mixology, you have new agility, you have the hunter. Hunter is completely transformed. You have a new prayer training method. I'm looking forward to just sitting there mining with my Iron Man and actually have like a good source of prayer XP. And now with the fletching and the rewards and Gem Crab,
it's really great. And that, I think, is a good pivot point to the general environment here of this batch 3, is that I don't know, and I mean, this is obviously intended, but the agility shortcuts in place around Auburnvale really synergized nicely with this activity, with the fletching activity, because I effectively ended up just doing one big, huge circle between the 2 banks and then using the agility shortcuts on the way. And with that, you feel like you're in the environment. And I guess we can, kind of piggyback this to the rainforest section as well.
I was already exciting for Auburnvale. I am a sucker for autumn and autumn colors and like this deep red theming, and Auburnvale delivered on this. It is gorgeous. I love spending time there. The soundtrack has some of the Alduin vibes. Like, the one thing I loved about Batch 2 of Varlamore, of course, is the music at Alduin. It's like some of my favorite tracks in the game. The vibe is very similar here as well. I just love spending time there, and that's part of the reason I think that the Fletching Activity works. They made the environment be enjoyable to be in.
Yeah. And, this is, I think if you put this on its own, and we said, maybe you experience this with parts of, Corrend and whatnot, right? But I think if you put this on its own and you said, this is a showcase of what modern OSRS content looks like, I think you have a compelling case for what OSRS is as on its own as a game when you don't factor in, the entire history of everything that is old school.
Look, comparing this to Corrend, right, which was the other new continent. I mean, first of all, when Corrend was first released, it was, basically a big square rectangle, mostly grass. The iteration that we're seeing right now is already massively improved compared to what it used to be before.
Yeah, and I don't think we should compare that to that first one. If anything, talk about the subsequent rework and stuff that came out after there.
Exactly, but like looking at how Varlamore looks right now, I'm like, please go back and improve Lovakeng and improve Arceus and finish the rework of that continent, because I want it to look like this. Old school has always looked very generic fantasy, sure, Mauritania looks dark and the wilderness looks black, but ultimately a lot of the areas felt very samey. Like, the most foreign you could get on the overworld was Isafdar, of course.
Yeah. Or you said overworld, because I was going to say subsequently the Zenaris, but that's not.
Oh, yeah, Zenaris, which is literally outerworldly, I guess.
Yeah.
But Varlamore has a completely different vibe. It feels different. The vegetation is new, the ground is new, the assets are all different, and that to me is awesome. And we have a few places like that, like in the desert, right? Around the Necropolis is like
Framanek.
that. Some of the new Framanek regions, maybe?
Yeah.
But all in all, like this is really on a whole new level. And if they take this forward into the islands that they will create with sailing, I mean,
yeah. Did you notice as well? There's that little block of town there that starts with the T. I'm not remembering its full name. That looks like it's full of canals, which is something you might be into.
Tempestus.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Which is basically designed for boats.
That's the city of bards. We know that there's the bard college there from the lore. I can't wait for that to be developed right now. But yeah, like looking at the map as well, there is Talteclan, which is the pyramid village, but there's Castori, and that's just a village with lots of sweet corn in this particular case. It should probably be rice, but they probably didn't have any rice assets, right?
Yeah, sure.
But like, I love like there's a bit of storytelling everywhere. Like just south of Talteclan, there's a broken rowboat and there's planks as spawns. That little bit of environmental storytelling really makes that part of the world just feel a little bit richer.
Yeah, and again, I'll take that up to the entirety of Varlamore itself and say that this is kind of what we experienced and expected throughout the entire thing. And if I was if I was running into somebody who said that they were going to play old school, I'd say, get yourself over to Varlamore as soon as you can, because that is, that is a good starting point for your character once you have the levels to do the first quest, just because of everything that's going to be there and how it's going to provide you a modern old school experience, I'll say.
Yep. And of course, we haven't really mentioned it, but like I love that there's just a little bit of an expansion of other things. So we have a few more farming patches. None of them too interesting. Though we do get the second cold crab patch ever. We know there's a third one on the way with sailing, of course. But if you like your cold quads,
I don't.
But there's a flower patch, a fruit tree patch, a tree patch. Yeah, so definitely time to update
the
your
big
farm
one,
runs.
yeah, and I was going to say the big ones there are definitely the tree and the fruit tree patch because of what that does, and I'd say maybe the belladonna as well for the nightshade availability, because you're still getting a fixed amount of nightshade per seed when you harvest there, so having only the one in drainer helps with that too.
Another very big one is that there's another carnivorous chinchompa hunting spot, and
I did notice that.
Always yeah, they're very crowded usually, so like all of that is great, and especially with there being 200,000 active players on the weekend on Old School right now. Competition for the resources is getting a little bit tight. So the timing of this is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think overall, if I was to just, put a T through this entire thing, this is probably my favorite batch out of the three. I feel like one, I was good. I feel like one I was good with.
I'm gonna still say that one is my favorite batch, because I think both the Blood Moon, the Moons of Peril, and the Colosseum are like the top tier PVM experiences.
Okay, I think this is my favorite one, then the first one, and then last being the second one. Many people will remember is that I just had a sour feeling for some reason after number two, but overall, this is an update that I enjoyed playing, and I wanted to play. And I have successfully done that, I think. So I'm happy with that.
I mean, to me, the release is further historical because for the first time in old school history, there's no black rectangles, no black chunks on the world map.
Yeah, what's your thoughts with Menaphos on that?
I mean, we knew it was going to be filled in for sailing regardless.
Yeah.
But this seemed like I fully support that decision to roll it out at this point just to complete the world map. It is so pleasing to look at. I can't wait until we get to fill in Menaphos and we get to fill in Tempestus? I don't know.
Words are hard to say after talking for 57 minutes so far.
Yeah, we should probably wrap it up soon, but the Jagex team has really proven that they can do area expansions, and yeah, I think there's something for everyone in this region. There's new shops, there's high level PVM, there is new stealing methods. What's not to love? I think every player in old school had something coming out of at least one of the three batches.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And, I think that's why what I said, is all the more true, is that this is the modern old school RuneScape experience, the Varlamore experience, if you will.
Let's keep it coming.
Yeah. The question is, what do you do for an encore after something like this? I mean, I guess we turn to the Summer Summit, which should be happening soon.
Winter Summit. Oh, so no, Summer Summit. Yeah, you're right. Yes, exactly.
I wish it was winter.
It's winter in Australia, so just move to the southern hemisphere.
I will not. No, I'm not doing that. But in any case, I think that's pretty much it for this week. We'll be back next week with the full lore discussion on the Varlamore quests, including the 2 little quests that did come out for this one. We are looking forward to doing those because there's always a good laugh in those. They're just something very unique. And of course, full discussion on the Final Dawn will be next week as well. Anything else? Anything else for you before we go?
Should we? You promised that you would talk about the show ending.
Well, I feel like I'll say it again. We have 2 episodes left. Next week we're going to be doing the lore episode about Varlamore Part 3 and the quests and all that, and then following from that we'll be doing a concise wrap up of OSRS update, because this show just started as a 10-episode pilot to talk about leagues, and we just continued it for then until, one of us felt that, there was no reason to not do that, I guess. And my experience has been that, since October, I've just been primarily focused on the group Auburnvale on RS3, which I am enjoying thoroughly. And there's aspects of OSRS, which, if I'm going to be 100% honest with you, is primarily the combat that I don't care for. But as this episode has shown, and as the Varlamore content has shown, there's a lot of non-combat and just, really well-designed skilling content in this game that is still enjoyable. So I think the thing that we'll talk about on that last episode is maybe in a bit of a Q&A format, is just do a bit of a wrap-up about the old school experience, where we've been, where you're going, where I might be going.
Yeah. Well, I will probably explain and do some call-outs on Discord and the show next week. But already start thinking maybe there's anything you want us to still discuss or answer before we delve under and disappear.
Well, and disappear.
See the thing. So if there's any questions that we would love to do a little bit of a Q&A on the last episode.
Yeah,
just,
and
shoot them in our direction.
And the thing that has made this an easier decision for me to make is that, if there's ever the need to bring it back entirely, that's something that can be done relatively easily with a regular commitment. And if there's ever any, major old school content that needs to be discussed, we have the platform to do that on a quiet week on the other show as well, and just bring that over to these feeds if anything like that should happen. So the door's open for things into the future. I just don't know what that is at this point. So, let us know what you'd like us to talk about on the episode in 2 weeks' time. Which, I mean, is weird to say, because for the longest, I think the last 3 months I've been saying every other week, but we have 2 episodes in a row coming up. So we are back week to week for 2 more. So be looking for those. You'll find them in all your favorite podcasting platforms out there. Update.show/OS. Just click on your favorite one: Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Spotify, and more. Also, of course, YouTube at youtube.com/@OSRS update. And the Discord as well can be found over at update.show/Discord. Anything else from you?
No.
All right. Well,
thanks for listening.
With that being said, we'll see you guys next week for another episode of the Old School RuneScape Update. See you then, everyone. Take care.
Bye.